Welcome to the Spiritual Roundtable, where we're about to break down, discuss, unpack, and challenge pretty much anything spiritual. Together, we're going to embark on a journey of unlocking spiritual potential through a ton of things like healing, balance, oneness, devil's advocate, and so much more. We always promise to give you what you need and only sometimes what you want. I'm your host, Erika M, child of balance, and here with me, my co-host is Miss Erin M, Keys of Wisdom 369. Today we're getting down and dirty with energy cords, talking no bullshit, everything that you need to know how to handle and how to function with energetic cords. Let's not waste any more time. Right into it. All right. So when we talk about energetic cords, it's extremely important to understand that energetic cords, when people talk about them and they start getting into the fact that you're corded to people, you share a cord, you this and that, and you hear it thrown around all the time. What they're really saying is that you have a link to somebody else's energy, another person, place, or thing. You are linked. If we think of it in the way of like a bridge, it's something that tethers you to something else. Those tethers can be good. They can be viewed as positive or negative. They can be neutral. They can just be. The point is that every cord acts as almost like its own unique energetic conversation in the way that we can have them in a very developed sense of a conversation. They've been there for lifetimes and we've gone round and round and our cord is so developed and look how it looks, look how dense it is, and there's a lot of history there. Or it could be super new and it could have just been birthed or just been connected or attached or something of that nature to where it's not as developed, it's not as in depth, and the communication is shorter. The important part about a bridge, a link, a tie, or anything like that, a conversation, is that it has the ability to work both ways. And that's extremely important because I feel like when people talk about energy cords, sometimes it gets a bad rep because we only talk about them when they become a problem, right? But it's important to know that the energy flows and goes both ways. So you can take as much as you give, and vice versa. Somebody can take and give in the same aspect. That's what healthy cords are. And we'll get into that in a minute. But it's important to know that people who you consider your soul family, the people you go around and around with, oftentimes have what I call a soul tie. Now, this is our definitions, and when you look online, you may find a whole slew of different kinds of definitions. But these are what me and Keys work with when we talk to the average person, right? Like a soul tie is a deep connection that has been courted throughout lifetimes. If we take maybe what that may look like, it may be slightly different for everybody else. They may have a different way of viewing their cords, but more often than not, when you talk to people, they look like snakes or ropes that are illuminated. They may glow, they may have an aura around them, and things like that. Now, because this seer sight ability lies in your creativity and the way that you function, it can be unique to you. Some people see them as jagged, some people see them as chain links, some people like make it whatever you will, but go with what you see and never contradict what you see or feel when it comes to your own assessment of chords. Now, soul ties are usually thicker, they're usually more vibrant if it's a healthy chord, and they will be positioned in a way that is usually more in the center of your being, your chest, your heart space, maybe through your back, like connecting to a more meaty part of you than something that would be considered less less developed and more superficial that you might notice like something sticking out of your leg or your arm or a small body part or something like that. Now, people we consider friends, that cord may have been developed over this lifetime. Like I've lived for 40 years and I've had a best friend since kindergarten and we've been together for 35 years. And that's a great cord. But that, as far as energy, is only tied to this lifetime, especially if you don't feel like you have a deep connection on other lifetimes with that person. So that cord will be slightly less beefy, slightly less whatever, but not any less important than the other ones. It's just that maybe that's just a this lifetime cord. Whereas the other ones will have traveled other lifetimes with you, other go arounds, other reincarnations, insert whatever word you want. Now, the stranger chords are usually the ones that people accumulate a lot of. They're the insignificant chords. They're the guy at the gas station, the person in traffic who you had a shouting match with out your window, right? Like they're the ones that you're gonna bump into. Maybe you're at the store, some old guy starts telling you his life story. Those are the like day-to-day quick attachment cords that you may not realize are there that could be weighing down your energy. And a lot of times when people be like, I want to recall my energy, a lot of times people are talking about from the randos that would be attaching energy to you just via interactions. And that's important to understand that those cords are less beefy, they're less developed, and chances are they're going to be attached in weird locations on your body. Your hands, your head, your feet, my right ear is ringing, your hands, your head, your feet, your arms, things that are just like the most random spots as if someone threw an anchor out and just hoped to grab you somewhere. That's usually what it feels like. It feels surface level, like it feels like a lasso, you know what I mean? Like just something really snatching your attention. It's important to understand, though, that when it comes to energy cords, they're your domain to handle. And because it's an energetic conversation, a lot can go into energy cords. And anytime you interact with somebody, whether that be a full on conversation, or it can even branch as little as an attention or an awareness, when you shift your focus onto something, you have the potential to create a very minor cord to something, a person, a place, a thing, right? Animals are included, but when we start talking about a lot of those things, if one glance and a half smile while I'm walking through the grocery store has the potential to intermingle energy with somebody I don't know, that could be a big problem if we don't have proper hygiene and all those other things, which we'll talk about later. But it's important to understand that these things happen throughout our daily lives, and sometimes we catch bad, like a bad rap for energetic cords, and people are like, you got to cut all your cords, you got to hurry up, and they're pulling on you. That's one side of cords, but there can be some very healthy cords, and there can be some very beneficial cords. So the first step to cords is awareness. It's awareness that everything you bump into, everything that you may come across is some sort of energetic awareness to something, and it's some sort of interaction that you have that has the potential to create a tie.
But it's exactly how you just said it. We establish these connections every day because they're rooted in, that strong emotional and or physical connection. And we tend to give these things, these cords a positive or negative, connotation. So let's kind of unpack that a little further. With positive energy cords, there's kind of like a mutual benefit to both parties. These, like you said, kind of stem from the heart space. It's a loving and supportive energy. Now, at times, this is like the example I like to give, but there's that equal give and take, right? But a good example of a positive cord that might not necessarily have that equal give and take would be that of like parent-child relationships. Now, I don't necessarily mean that like as grown adult children, but as parents raising younger children, that should be a positive energy cord. But
Right.
it's not always that even give and take, because kids need us and our energy in a bit of an unbalanced way until they grow and kind of, learn to stand on their own feet more. But, I love the example you gave about, things like being in traffic or at the grocery store or this or that. When we talk about negative chords or an imbalanced chord, that's where there's way more, take. There's not a reciprocity. You feel like your energy is almost being siphoned. But I think what's so important with like an imbalanced chord is to realize that it's not always intentional and it's not always malicious. So people always jump to the like, oh, I have an attachment to this person and it's negative and it's this and they're pulling on me and that. Sometimes people are drawn to you. They're drawn to, like, your energy feels safe to them. Like you said, somebody who comes up and starts telling you their life story
Yep.
at the grocery store. They are not trying to trauma dump on you. They are not trying to, you know, energetically attack you or attach to you. They literally feel something in your energy that says, it is okay for me to talk to this person, to speak part of my truth. So when I say, but it's very one-sided as well, right? You're just at the store trying to check out. You're minding your own business. And then here comes Tom, and he's just like, well, this happened to me when I was a kid, and like, I was picking out fruit roll-ups, and like it totally just, but that's the thing. It is an imbalanced chord. It doesn't need to be negative in the sense of something nefarious, something malicious, something malevolent, right?
Right.
But there's also the sense where we can create an imbalanced chord all by ourselves. Meaning, say you're driving in traffic and, Sam over here has road rage and flips you off, right? You're just minding your business, going 30 miles an hour, wherever you need to go. But then you go home and you start repeating this to everybody who will listen because whatever your reason is, now you are establishing an anchor to this chord. It was an isolated incident. It's over and done with, but you're actually feeding it energy. So
Well,
you
that's
are
the thing, like
anchoring.
an anchor, and you're feeding it negatively. So the anchor you're exactly right. The anchor you're creating is so negative and so dense and it has such an opinion about that energy, that whole situation. You're exactly right. You're feeding it, and you're feeding it in a negative way to down do yourself. Like that's wild.
Well, and people, that's one thing people don't get when we always talk about how words are spells or words are powerful or, be careful with how you speak and what you say. When you talk about people, when you speak of a certain situation over and over again, you are literally dialing up the energy. You are calling it into your space. You are telling it has permission to be there. And just like we were just saying, you are anchoring into that energy. And by continuing to speak about it, you're literally giving it permission to manifest in your own energy,
Yep.
however that ends up taking shape or form.
I just think it's really important before we move anywhere else. I just think it's really important because some of the things that you said are really key. And I feel like a lot of people skip over the part that you're like, a lot of what people do, especially when we are talking about energy and energetic cord conversation, is subconscious. They don't realize they're doing it. The person just realizes that they feel better when you're around. They have a good time when you're close. They enjoy your guys' conversations. They enjoy picking your brain. They feel safe. They did this. They don't realize that you may not be getting the same type of energy that they get from you. And this happens especially when, you know, you may be more developed in an area, or you might, have a wider branch or a wider stem to something, or you might have more knowledge somewhere, or you might be doing this longer, or they may be someone you look up to. A lot of it is subconscious. They don't realize they're doing it. Now, don't get me wrong. There are the like shitty people. There are shitty people in the world who use magic and energy, intention, and things for the wrong reasons, of course. But when we're talking about the 7 something billion people that are on the planet, and then you narrow it down to the people who even interact with energy in the way that we're talking about it, right? Who would have the purpose to do it intentionally is so minor, and it is so minute that chances are that's not the case. I mean, you were saying it the other day about evil eye. You know what I mean? Like half of the evil eye, 90%, 99% of the evil eye people send you is unintentional. It's their own shit by accident, their own way they're
Correct.
thinking, they're feeling, they're acting about you in one way, shape, or form. And they're not doing it intentional. It's the same thing with energy. And a lot of times when we talk about energy vampires or siphoning of energy, a lot of times it's just that very thing. that people are encompassed with what you bring. They're just floored with how you give so freely, and they just enamored by your energy. That's part of your light. You know what I mean? And that's something, while we may not be able to change that fact, we can sure as shit set boundaries. We can sure as shit decide what we're going to allow, because you just said it, whether you realize it or not, that it's one of those things that you are allowing it to happen when you entertain it. When you entertain it, you are allowing it. And it's one of those things that, a lot of times it's not always like this person's doing it to me. It's I'm allowing this person to take from me more than I get from that person. You're accepting the imbalance and telling the entire universe, every cell in your body and your energy, that this is okay. So then you can't be mad at the other person when you tell them it's okay that they keep coming for more. Now, a word from our sponsors. If you are looking for a one-stop shop for all things spiritual, check out the website, www.childofbalance.com. Right now, we are running a thank you special for the entire month of June with the coupon code THANKYOU20. You can get 20% off any private, full, dual space, intuitive tarot/oracle reading. You're going to sit down an hour with me, Child of Balance, and Miss Keys of Wisdom 369. And we're going to let it all rip. We're going to tell you exactly what you need to know. And it's 20% off. So using the code THANKYOU20, you can access that. But we didn't just stop there. We couldn't stop there. We want to say thank you for all that you have done. And we are also doing a raffle. Anybody for the entire month of June who either purchases a live reading on Instagram or TikTok, whether that be dual or solo reads from myself, Child of Balance, or Miss Keys to Wisdom's 369, and anybody who purchases a private read on the website will be entered into a drawing. And at the end of the month, we'll mix all the names up and we'll pull one out, and you will win a free 30-minute reading with myself and Miss Keys of Wisdom in private, where you're going to get us all to yourself for 30 minutes. We're just trying to say thank you to everyone who has supported us this far, and for every customer we've ever had. The only thing that you are required to have in order to be a part of the drawing is you must be a member of the website. And it's just so we can figure out how to contact you and let you know you won. So if you want a one-stop shop for private spaces, spiritual guidance and assistance, mediumship, mentorship, private readings, shadow work, assistance, it's all there. If you are looking for a free tree of knowledge where you can learn esoteric wisdoms, breath work, you can learn about yourself, cultures, spiritual hygiene, spiritual practices, spiritual traditions, and you can just learn about almost anything under the sun spiritual for 100% free, check out the website. And you should become a member. If you're not already a member, www.childofbalance.com. It's 100% free. It'll never cost you money. We would never charge you money. The website is about assistance and community. Take advantage of it, fam. It's a great place to go to unlock your spiritual potential. www.childofbalance.com.
Correct. And, but that's before, when we're talking about, chords and this and that, you literally have to take a step back. And the first thing is, like you said, it's always awareness. You have to be willing to take a look at your relationships around you. That's literally the first key. And you have to realize, are you engaging in balanced relationships? Is there reciprocity? Is there more give than there is take? Or, one way or the other. Is somebody taking more from you? Are you giving more? Then you have to ask yourself, what, once you've decided, am I in balanced relationships? If the answer is no, you need to ask yourself, how are you showing up in your relationships? This is where your boundaries come in. Because sometimes the awareness is that you just don't have good boundaries. You are asking things of people, right? They're requests. They're not actually boundaries. Your boundaries are for you. And like a prime example, and it might not be a great example, but I have a family member who they're always like, well, I'm entitled to my thoughts and opinions, right? And I'm
Right.
like, yes, you absolutely are, but I don't have to listen to them. And the reason I say that, it's not to be judgment or anything like that. It's literally the fact that this specific family member, they like to play out every doomsday scenario. They never say anything positive. They never look for the, light at the end of the tunnel, the silver lining. They don't sit in a place of blind faith. And that's okay. And that's why I always say, no, you're totally entitled to your opinion in your feelings, but you don't get to come over to my house and dump that shit on me and then say, well, you'll listen to this person. Well, this person isn't doing this. That's
That's
my
so
boundary.
that's so point on though. Like that's so on point where you're like, you're entitled to your opinion, but you're entitled to it over there.
Exactly. But see, that's a boundary because, again, and I know we'll get into this part later, but my energetic cord with that person isn't one that I can just go off and be like, well, we're just gonna, you are the weakest link. Goodbye. It's
Voted off the island.
right. Like, it's not. So, like, I have to understand, and I have to find boundaries, energetic boundaries, because this person is in a different place than I am. There is nothing wrong with that. I am not here to change them. The only person who's going to change them is them. But I had to realize how I was showing up in this relationship, what I was actually allowing, and where I wasn't enforcing things energetically on my end. Because what would happen is, before I did that, I would then get so mad. And because we, you know what I mean? We have a friendship outside of this. I would then
Right.
have to unpack it. But I'm then essentially giving it my energy. So I'm giving this example to show people how I'm continuing to anchor in that energy if I don't put a boundary in place. So when I say that, like, that's where everybody's awareness actually has to start, when you're kind of trying to figure out these chords in your life. And a lot of it is, one, energetic recall, because that's just good spiritual hygiene. The
Well, and
other
that's
is
it right there. That is key right there. Just the idea that that's how you maintain healthy cords. And I think a lot of
exactly
people get that twisted. You aid in maintaining healthy cords. It is entirely within your control, it is within your power, because that cord is a two-way street. The phone works both ways, and it's the same way with energy. You can cross the bridge and you can return on the same bridge. It's the same exact thing. And a huge part of hygiene, whether we realize it or not, is boundaries. What can we live with? What can't we live with? What benefits us? What doesn't? Nobody can tell us that but us. And then when you
correct.
add in, like you just started to, is recall. Some of the easiest things that you can do, and you said it before, is speak your recall. And I feel like a lot of
Yep.
people don't do it. They want this big mystical long meditate. You don't need any of that crap. You can do it,
Yep.
but you don't need to create hurdles for yourself and more of a laundry list of bullshit that you need to do to get something done. It can just be that fucking simple. It can just be that easy. Sometimes all you have to do, and I'm going to give you guys an example phrase that we give to everybody freely when they're just starting their recall, because it's important, and this goes for these are more the chords that you're going to form throughout the day, just living your life, bumping into people at the store, here and there, traveling to locations. You can use this and think of one specific person, and you can do your callback. But the way I'm gonna say it's a lot more general. So ad lib it as you want, but it's I call my energy back from every person, place, or thing in this dimension or others, because we know you guys travel. This dimension or others that no longer serves my greatest, highest good. Because let's be honest, we understand that we're more than just our physical vessel. And some of us are here for a larger purpose. And we understand that while we are the roadmap and we are, you know, all these things, we might not have the active awareness of where we're going, what the end game is, what this looks like on the bigger scale, the bigger picture, how we are interconnected in the huge web of bullshit that this world runs on, right? So, like, when we take that out, it's also giving that little bit up to source, God, spirit, universe, creator, whatever your label is, insert it there as you feel free. But then ending it with, I release all energy that's not mine. That is saying that I am ending and starting the day with just my energy. If you think of it like a gas tank, just my gas in my tank with a full tank. That's extremely important. And that is one of the easiest ways that you can do energetic recall without anything else needed besides your power, your personal power, your control, your energy, your say so, and your permission. Because a lot of this stuff happens, like he said just a minute ago, with your permission.
Correct. Well, and and that's part of it too. When we start talking about energy recall, boundaries, releasing these ties, right? Cutting cords, whatever you want to call that.
Right.
I mean, the way I like to tell it to people is regardless of the label that you give it, regardless of its mental, visual, physical representation, you are looking to release a person, place, belief, intention, so that you're no longer negatively affected by it. It's just that simple.
Yep.
I think that a lot of times when we talk about cords, it almost gets a bad rap because, toxic spirituality will tell you every single person that pisses you off, you need to do a cord cut. Not
Right.
how that works. But I want to piggyback that back to what you just said when you said your energetic recall. Your highest, greatest good. There are people that are put in your path for a reason.
Yes.
Sometimes your ego can't understand why this person is standing here. So while you're sitting there like, well, I'm mad at you because I don't like that you triggered this, this, or this. So I'm fit to go cut a cord. That's not how it works. And I know we're going to bridge into it really quick about cords you can't cut.
Yep.
But that's the thing. When you don't have the whole picture and you are doing something like cutting cords, because I'm going to say cutting cords, and you are doing it as a reaction to something, that should tell you right then and there that that is not what you should be doing. Cutting cords is not a reactive behavior. It is literally meant to release energy. And it means you've sat with it, you've discerned the energy, you know it's not yours, and that it is taking a toll on you. So you are asking basically to rebalance in your own energy. It's not meant to be malicious. And that's the thing, that requires you to ground yourself because you have to be able to discern the energy. Because, like I said, if you're trying to cut something from somebody who's literally here to teach you something, it's not going to work. Because biggest misconception is that if you cut a cord, then these people just aren't going to exist in your physical reality anymore. That's a lie. Because that's not the purpose of it. Again, it is a release. So when you say that, you've got to go back and look at your imbalance in relationships, like we were talking about. And the thing is that, releasing these cords, releasing this energy so that you can create a balanced, energy.
Well, but I think that that's huge because there's a certain point that you get to that it's like, I'm not doing this as a fuck you. I'm doing this because I decided this works better for me, or that this is what I need to do to maintain my balance. Because if we are cutting cords, whether that be physical candle cord cuts, or that's just energetically cutting cords, which we'll go into both of those in a second. Like, but regardless, when you're doing that, if you're doing it like he's just said, off the fuck you, then that's not right. Like, you're reacting. You're not doing, that balanced perspective. You're not doing that coming together perspective. You're not coming from a level neutral place. And you got to ask yourself, is coming off of reaction in your highest greatest good? Now, a word from our sponsors. If you are looking for a one-stop shop for all things spiritual, check out the website www.childofbalance.com. For those of you who truly appreciate handmade products, we have a handmade shop. Everything is made to order, blessed, saged, and sent out as quick as possible. We have anything from handmade sounds for meditation to chakra chain macrames to tree of life macrames with inlaid crystals to herbal blends like bath teas and dump and go specials to road opener mixes to kits and oils and so much more. For those of you who enjoy taking spiritual classes and courses but maybe can't fit it into your busy schedule, we have self-study courses, and everything can be found in the handmade shop. The website is about assistance and community. Take advantage of it, fam. It's a great place to go to unlock your spiritual potential. www.childofbalance.com.
So, when we're talking about, doing like a cord cutting because you're needing a physical representation, right?
Right.
Typically, what does that look like? So typically you have two separate candles, right? One represents your energy. The other represents either another person, a place, a belief, a situation that you're trying to, let go of, detach from. And then you use kind of like a jute cord or something like that and wrap it around both of those. The entire purpose behind a physical representation like this is what your intention is. It's just like everything. It's your intention. It's literally creating something that your physical, tangible eyes can see to release this energetic tie, per se. It's representative of you essentially kind of one recalling your energy from the situation and then physically showing your eyes that you are detaching from something because you're struggling kind of in that mental or vision space to do it that way. Again, like you touched on before, and we both kind of said it, doing a physical representation like this should never be a reactive behavior. It's literally just bringing something into your physical reality to help you connect. Because that's the thing. When we talk about energy and cords and this, all of this can be done energetically. You don't have to do it with physical items. It's just when you're kind of struggling to connect.
Like, yeah, and that's the thing is like all of the physical things they're just tools. They're just tools for you to enact your energy and your intention on. They're nothing more than that. They can't do for you what you can't do for yourself. It's just a place to put and place your intention and your energy. Sure, can some things help and assist with natural frequencies, natural vibrations to like amplify what you already have? Yeah, of course. There's some of that, especially when we start using like representations and crystals and herbs. And yeah, of course. But that may not jive for everybody. And that's completely okay. That's completely okay. And for a lot of people who may not delve in the physical intention magic or magic at all, or maybe they don't like candle stuff, that might trigger something for them, or it might be a little fear, or just something they're not comfortable with. It's okay. You don't have to do it that way. You are the magic.
You are the energy that is performing those things with physical tools. So, like you just said, you can do it just in energetic cord cut. And you can do it real simple with just the recall phrase. But some people, that's not enough. That might leave them questioning, did it work? Did it not work? Did it? So if you're somebody who may be like, I need a visual, I need to see something. And if you are somebody who has that seer sight, that mental and maybe meditative imagination, or whatever you want to call it, it's really simple. You can envision the chords, what they look like, really feel the chord, identify it, envision the light, the dark, maybe the broken chain link, or if it's an unhealthy chord, right? And you can picture your hand turning into a sword and slicing the cord. You can picture getting out a big pair of scissors and cutting it. You can picture whatever is going to work with you. And this is where it's so individualistic. Some people light them on fire because they jive with the fire element. Some people drowned out the cord. It's whatever works with you and whatever resonates with your energy, so that you don't question what the fuck you just did. If you do it and you're like, I feel better, that worked, then that's great. And that's all you need to know. It's as simple as that. It doesn't have to be complicated. You can make it as complicated as you want, but it doesn't need to be that complicated. Sometimes we like all the fun bells and whistles and we like the woo woo stuff, and that's fantastic. But just know you can do similar things with a really intense recall and with a ton of intention and energy put behind your recall, as you can with envisioning something that actually severs a cord. Now, this kind of goes into a little bit of kind of what you touched on before, Keys, of being like it, and this is unpopular opinion, especially nowadays with the reaction culture that a large part of the collective is in, and this might go against some cultural beliefs maybe, or some fundamental core beliefs. So like we say, listen with everything with an open mind, but if it doesn't resonate for you, then don't adopt it, and you don't have to. However, this may ruffle some feathers, but in my camp over here, there are some cords you can't cut. And some people will be like, no, that's fucking bullshit. You can cut whatever you want. Yeah, okay. People say that. But in my personal experience, that's just not the truth. And one of the easiest ones that I like to give as like in my mind, a da-da-da-da, like kind of an example is your parents.
Yep.
And where we're just going to come logically at it and nowhere else, just right off the grip. How do you cut a cord to somebody whose energy you are half of?
Yep.
How does that work? Because their essences, their breadcrumbs, their mannerisms, their generational energy, their lineage energy has the potential to be flowing through you at phenomenal rates. How do you cut a cord completely severing? Now, we're not talking about taking a chunk at it. We're not talking about boundaries. We're not talking about going no contact. No, I'm talking about like ka-choppity chop chop. How do we cut something that we are half of? How does that
Correct.
like that just mind boggles me sometimes. And sometimes I go so far as to even think of it as your really developed soul ties. Now, I'm talking about lifetime soul ties, that, maybe that person that you just, people talk about, my soulmate, my this, my that, my takes my breath away, is here, and the world just makes sense. My partner in crime, my ride or die, you know what I mean? Like, all of those types of energy are just really developed around and around the world again, soul ties. They're there for a purpose. You're clearly doing this shit on repeat for a reason. And there
Correct.
are chords, and this is my opinion, and I understand that may ruffle some feathers. Some people may come after me, and that's fine. Like I said, my opinion, adopt it or don't. Like, it's just that maybe we're not meant to cut that shit. I feel like that tie is supposed to be there. I feel like sometimes those ties are here to teach us something. That connection dives deeper than we can even imagine on our one go around. And if it stood the test of time and we're supposed to be giving people grace that this might not be their best go around and they may not be shitty people and they may not be this, life might just did them dirty. Well, maybe life just did you homie dirty. Maybe life just did your soul tie dirty. Maybe life, like, if we just go willy-nilly cutting stuff, sometimes it just has you sitting thinking, like, whose highest greatest good was that in? Like, I'm not saying don't have boundaries. I'm not saying don't go no contact. I'm just saying I feel like there are some cords, whether they're used or not, that I don't know that I feel like we have the permission to cut. Like, I don't know, Keys. Like, I don't know. I guess maybe I'll ask you, how do you feel about that? Specifically as it relates to non-parents and non-family members, you know what I mean? In the traditional sense.
Well, I guess like I actually just want to pose, I guess maybe like a rhetorical question
Oh,
or
fire away.
a critical thinking question.
Yes,
Because
ma'am.
this might not be everybody's cup of tea.
And that's
But
okay.
but listening to you talk kind of takes me back to conversations that I've, been a part of. I've listened to people have, and here's where I sit with this. And I'm just saying is the seat of the observer.
Yes, ma'am.
If you sit with somebody and you acknowledge and say that you have an awareness that you know them from another lifetime, right?
Right.
And they came as, you guys were representative as, this kind of relationship, like maybe a familial relationship in this lifetime. And in this lifetime, you were, soulmates. And in this one, you were something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me you got an energetic awareness that, this person, their energy feels so familiar to you that like like deja vu, whatever you want to call it. Like, I don't know why I feel the way I do with you, because like I've just never felt this way. Like, I feel like I've known you all my life. I feel this, and this. And then you're like, but I think I should cut that cord. Because the thing is this, if you haven't aware, this is just the way my brain works. And again, nobody has to agree with me, but my brain goes, so you're telling me that you were this kind of a relationship in this lifetime. So that was the lesson, right? You're identifying a relationship, because relationships, people, I don't care what label you give it, a karmic is a teacher. And I will repeat that for the people in the back. A karmic is a teacher.
Yep.
It is not good. It is not bad. It has been given a label and energy assigned to it to tell you that it is bad. A karmic is a teacher, nothing more, nothing less.
Yep.
So what I'm saying is, if I listen to people, like I said, I'm a really good listener. I love to listen to everybody's perspective.
Yes.
But if you tell me you understand that you've been doing things with people for lifetimes, or you have past life memories, all these really cool things, right?
Mm-hmm.
You understand that this energy has been present over and over and over again, whether in past lives, parallel lives, I don't care what you call it.
Right.
But now like you just said, now in this physical reality, the lesson this energy, this vessel, this energy is embodying is here to help you evolve in a way that it hasn't in a different life, timeline, paradigm, whatever. But now you decide, because you don't like the lesson, it's time to cut a cord that goes across lifetimes.
Well, and let's be honest, like, let's just, I wasn't going to go here, but let's do this. Like, because we've talked about this in the private space, so maybe it's a good food for thought for other people. Have you noticed that when you learn your lesson, the contract ends and your karmic disappears? It's poof, because you learned it, right? You
Yes.
move past it, and they just, you just don't see them. It's
Yes.
only when we need to continue to either reassert our boundary or we need to do something else, or we haven't fully adopted, internalized, understood what just happened, you know what I mean, and really come to terms with it and this and that, that these things continue to be prevalent. Or there's something else that you haven't learned yet. There's something else that still needs to be brought to attention, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many people, and I know we work with people like this. I know we've experienced in our own lives that when you close out something, it really does just go away. And all you
Yes.
have to do is practice good energetic hygiene, recalling in this. It doesn't
Yep.
mean you have to go severing cords that have been there for 8,
No.
12, 14, 20 lifetimes, go arounds, and these well established cords, because this, like I said, this is just personal. It just blows my mind. And sometimes, and my team, my court, the people I work with, my stuff like that, like they will literally be like, the cord you can't cut because maybe
Yep.
it's not meant to be cut. And it's like, how do we know based on our limited, because we can understand that the human brain and our human existence is not capable of fathoming what our soul can, right? Like everybody is in agreement with that. So if you're telling me that I don't fully understand the depth of that etherical energetic cord, because it's a non-physical cord when it's energy, right? So that in-depth etherical cord, but I have an awareness it's there. Can I make a good decision with only half of the information needed, or
No.
less than half of the information needed to make an informed decision to potentially use all of my essence or all of my intention or all of my energy to sever said cord? And is that even possible? Can you even cut cords that you're not meant to cut? Some people say no. Some people try it anyway, and it doesn't end up working out. I just think that that's an interesting thing to have people think about before we just go chopping things, because you really have to decide what you believe in, and then go with it. Like no one's telling you you're wrong, but like go with it, because you're going to find out one way or another whether it's cuttable, whether it works for you. And when you head wherever we go to restart somewhere, you're either going to get slack for what the hell you just did, or you're not. You know what I mean? And that if that's the risk you're willing to take, then by all means take it. Now, the people who are a little bit more rational and may not have such a hard and fast rule as to I can do this, I can't do that. And maybe they fall outside of either cultural constructs or belief systems that have a set way of doing said things. Maybe it's not built in, and maybe they're more like omni whatever, to where they take bits and pieces of a lot of different things and they're forming their own patterns to things. This is a great little exercise or maybe tool if you're having trouble determining if a cord is truly good for you, if it's healthy. Maybe you can't see it all the way, but you know it exists. Or maybe you're trying to determine how much does this cord really take versus how much do I get from it. Um, and this is something that me and Keys kind of came up with on the fly, learning through our own life experiences. You know what I mean? So by no means am I saying we created the idea, but we didn't borrow it from anywhere else, and we truly just got it from our teams. And sometimes, as a first step before maybe decisiveness comes in before cutting, maybe try clamping. And maybe place a couple clamps on that bitch. Because I'm gonna be real honest, there's a part to there's a part to clamping that is temporary. There's a part to clamping that you can take it off. You can take it off whenever you want. But you put 2 or 3 clamps on a cord that as a bridge or a rope works both ways. Well, now we just stopped its ability to work both ways. So you can't take from it unless you remove the clamp, but you also can't be stolen from unless you remove the clamp. So if you're trying to figure out what energy does what to you, sometimes that's a great little tester exercise to envision
Yep.
your cord and then put some freaking clamps on it and then sit for a week or 2 weeks and see what happens. Who comes running? Who doesn't? Do you feel a lot of pressure? Do you feel a lot of bombardment up against your cord, up against your clamps? How's the other person reacting? Right? Because chances are you're in close proximity. How's the other person reacting? Do they feel like you know, like beside themselves? Are they looking like, who the hell did it? What the fuck for? Exactly. Like, are they looking, you know what I mean? Like they're outside of themselves, like, you know, but then it's like, are you lacking something? Do you feel like you're not getting fed? Or do you feel okay? Are you able to maintain your own energy? Because that's not about the other person, but that
No,
is
it's
a good awareness. But it's about us. It's about what the cord is doing to us and what it's not doing. If we
correct.
feel low, and I mean super low, like if we're like, oh, I feel like I'm missing something, I feel like I can't recharge, then maybe that's a cord that you do take from more than you realize. And sometimes that's a good awareness practice of, oh, it may seem on the surface like this person's always calling me. But if you're pulling unintentionally because maybe you didn't have an awareness of just how far your energy reaches, right? If you're taking energetically, sometimes that looks different for everybody. And sometimes that doesn't require a physical conversation. Sometimes it doesn't require, like my heavy astralers, you'd be surprised how much your energy intermingles with others and just how much you get and receive during astral, during, free reign of your, of your spirit, of your essence, of your whatever, of your higher consciousness, right? Like there's a lot of things to consider. But the best thing about clamps is, like we said, it's temporary. If you don't like the way the clamp makes you feel, and I mean, you really have to be objective. You know what I mean? If you don't like the way the clamp feels, you can take it off. You could put it on one day and be like, this was the worst decision I ever made. Take it off. And congratulations, you didn't cut a cord and nobody has to know about it. And then if it
Correct.
is something that you're like, oh, with this clamp on, I feel better. I feel healthier. I feel more stable. Maybe it's conducive to a positive balance and health in your life, energetically, emotionally, mentally, physically, because all those things work together. Energetic imbalance equals dis-ease within the body, which equals disease, which equals pain, hurt, like all those things. So if you do like the way it feels, you have then two options. How do I address this? Do I leave the clamp on and no one's none the wiser and I practice better boundaries, or with the person in the physical or whatever? Or do I decide that it's better if I move on? Maybe I outgrew a situation, maybe I outgrew a person, whatever, and I'm going to cut the cord. But that leaves it entirely in your control, your hands, and your discernment, because it's all about your awareness and what works for you. Nobody else is living your life in your vessel but you. So what the fuck works for you? And it has to work for you. So sometimes cutting isn't the knee jerk reaction.
No.
But if you feel like you need to do something and you want to determine what the hell's going on, clamp it. You would be surprised at just how much information you can get from when you clamp some things.
Well, because think about it. When you clamp something, you're learning to use your own energy and redirect it. You're redirecting your own energy. You're basically, it's an ask again, right? You're asking, put this boundary, energetic boundary in place. Let me discern what is truly mine, what is not, because that's why you're sitting where you're sitting to begin with. You have tried to almost overly discern yourself into your own imbalance, where you're trying to figure out what's the next step. What's
Well,
the next step?
but that's the thing, and it's just so interesting because it allows you to check your own ass. A lot of
Yes.
people are so ready to check somebody else when they really need to check themselves first. Because let's be
Correct.
honest, if I put a physical boundary in place, but maybe I'm a heavy astraler, maybe I'm a heavy energetic person and I just don't realize it. Maybe I'm empathic, maybe I'm this, maybe I'm whatever, and I'm seeking shit out accidentally, or maybe I'm a reviewer and I'm constantly, like you said before, reviewing good times, good places, good people. Like I could be unintentionally out of my awareness reaching for energy. So when you clamp a cord, you're setting the same boundaries for yourself. I'm not going to tell them they can't do this and then me continue to take. It's the same thing. It stops it on both ends. It's neutral and it's the same boundary for both sides of the cord. And that's what I think is so brilliant about it and is so fun about it and is so honest about it, is because you're going to get the hard look at just how that cord and energy acts and just what you truly pull from it, because you're looking for that objective, no bullshit answer. You want to know if you're going to clamp something, if you're thinking about cutting something, you want to know. Like, let's be honest. You just didn't wake up one day and I'm like, I won't cut this. No, you want to know. So you want to keep yourself accountable. And that's how you do it. That's one of the easiest ways to do it. Now, we're going to just pivot real fast before we end. We're just going to go over some really general things of what you don't do when it comes to energetic cords and even cord cutting, both, energetic and magical. It really doesn't matter, physical representation or just etherical. The same principles apply, you know?
Correct. And the thing is, but like the first thing is, you can't have unrealistic expectations. And,
Yes.
we kind of touched on that back in the beginning. You have to figure out what is actually a boundary you need to put in place versus a cord you actually either need to cut to ask to reestablish a healthy connection. When you just touched on the clamp is representative of come correct. It's literally a representation of come correct. It's we got to figure out something here. So again, but that's not having unrealistic expectations. You can't just be like, well, I'm asking you not to do this anymore, but this is my expectation. You didn't agree to it because you didn't, off with your head, off with your cord. It doesn't work that way. You have to literally sit in a space where you're not having unrealistic expectations. This is for you. It's not reactive. It is to ground yourself, to discern what's yours, and to release in hopes of coming back to a state of balance for yourself where you don't feel that you're in this denser, debilitating, overwhelming energy that does not belong to you. But you have to have realistic expectations.
Well, and it's like extremely important to understand that. And I truly believe that any good practitioner, energetic, magical, whatever, is going to tell you that one, what you do is only good as you believe it works. And two, like on top of it, you have to keep yourself accountable. So when we talk about like cord cutting, right? If you cut a cord and you determine for whatever reason, I want to cut a cord, energetic, magical, doesn't matter, right? You're saying I am cutting energetic contact with somebody. Now you have to determine, like he's just said, are you cutting it because it's unhealthy, but you're not wanting to necessarily cut the whole person out? Maybe you just want to start again. So you're like, let's start fresh, right? Okay.
Yes.
Like you could come at it from that way, but a lot of people when they cord cut, especially with current, collective and trends and everything else, like right, current popularity, it's usually more the F you never again kind of a cord cut, right? It's the I'm moving on with my life, ta-da, cord cut, which perfectly within your right if you want to do. But you have to keep yourself accountable because if I can smile at a stranger and potentially connect a cord, there's a lot of things that you can do to reestablish a cord, whether you realize it or not. Like, checking their social media, stalking them, gang stalking, you know, you know, driving by their place or, attempting to bump into them or keeping track of them in one way or another, or, just snooping energy has the potential to entertain and entangle your energy in the person's energy you just cut a cord from. So sometimes thinking of yourself and like checking your own ass is extremely important. And Key said it once or twice already, but also replaying, reliving, going through so much so that you don't move past it, right? Like it's that unhealed replay to where we just keep bringing it up, and it's almost becomes maybe, you have a friend or something that you almost kind of like, I don't want to say identify with your trauma bond, but like just something where it's like, you don't let it die, you don't let it go away, and you're not ready to step into your next chapter, right? That's just an inkling that there's some shit that you need to work on. There's some stuff that you need to look at, you need to get past. Like, it's not saying that you're an awful person or anything like that, but it's just breadcrumbs to be like, hey, maybe I wasn't ready fully to fully release that person. Maybe I wasn't ready fully to cut a cord. If you cut a cord and you find yourself being the hyper stalker, the one who's checking everything, what are they doing? And like, you really are going to need to check yourself because you were not ready to cut that cord. You were not ready to fully release somebody. And there's some shit there that you got to look at. And one of those things is a lot of people like to blame shift. Oh, well, this person must be doing this to keep their energy in my. No, take some responsibility. Take some responsibility. That is your control over yourself. Nobody is forcing you with a gun to your head to go log on and stalk people's TikToks or their Facebooks or their Instagrams or whatever, social media you're using. Like, nobody's forcing you to do that. When you're making fake accounts and you're stalking people and you're doing all this crazy stuff to stay relevant or to snoop or to see what they're up to, or no, that's a you problem. But if it's a you problem, you can fix it. And it's one of those things that it just requires you to take step two, and that's healing. Because every cord is a connection, and every connection we have with a person, place, or thing, it doesn't really matter. It leaves us the potential to have to unpack some shit. Some shit might need evaluated, some shit might need gone through, and that's our personal responsibility. And that's nobody else's problem but ours. You know what I mean?
And I also, I know I touched on it earlier, but, when you continue to speak up or make topics of conversation, you're dialing back up that energy. But a really good way to think of it is like when you're ending a tie, right? You're essentially closing a chapter. This person, this situation, whatever you're trying to release here, right? We don't let this rent space for free in our heads anymore. We're closing the book. I want to really put it that way, not even the chapter. You're closing the book. The book is going back up on the shelf. We're done with it. It's not in the present anymore. It doesn't get the power to rent space for free anymore, because the thing is, you're coming from a healthy place. You're coming from a place of balance. So when you sit there, you need to let go of the making people the villain in the story you're telling. You're continuing to give something power that you're trying to make peace with in your life. That's the entire purpose, and what these practices are rooted in is balance and peace. So if you are continuing to give your energy to something in a way that continues to bring it back front and center, like you said, whether you're, I don't want this person in my life, but now I'm going to go creep their social media and see what they're doing. Your energy is very much craving to know what they're doing. You don't have to admit it, but your energy, it's like almost like an addicted type of thing. I need to go see what they're doing. I need to know what they're saying about me. Because that's just messed up. You can't claim to want to end something, that it's no longer good for you, and then behave in a manner that is inviting and calling and dialing that energy back up and bringing it front and center.
And I think the key is with that, because a lot of times we may think we're healed, we may think we're past it, and we're not, and it's just a breadcrumb. But I think the difference in what you're talking about versus somebody who's just like, oh, maybe I'm not over this all the way yet, right? The difference is you're not playing victim in your own story. You're not a victim of somebody else, and this isn't happening to you, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's that different mentality and that different lens, like you said, that you come at it from, of being like, you can have an awareness like, oh, I'm doing these things. I know I shouldn't be doing these things. Maybe I need to go back inward and relook at some things. Very healthy, very normal, and that's okay. Maybe you just didn't unpack it all the way. That is a perfectly okay thing. You know what I mean? You may have to do some record cutting after you fully unpacked it at a deeper level, but there's definitely that delineation like you're talking about, when it's almost like a boastful thing, when it comes from that ego of being like, I did this, high fives all around, but then you're going to stay present in the energy you claim to wanted to detach or run from, because that's really what it is. You're staying, like you said, you're staying present in that energy. And now we're almost kind of switching into, this isn't my fault, and lack of responsibility and victimship of being like, but this is where we are now. Like, no, like that's different. And that's like what you're saying is 100% bogus, but that's still the point where either your friends got to call you out because clearly you're not calling yourself out. Or like, so get you a good buddy who's going to be like, I love you to death and I love you too much to let you be stupid. You know what I mean? Like, fuck, we do it all the time. Like, get you a good buddy. But it's like one of those things, like, if you're not doing that for yourself, then someone's going to need to do it. Otherwise, the fall off of the pedestal you put yourself on is going to really hurt. Because at some point, you got to own your shit, and everybody gets their own rock bottom, and everybody owns their own healing journey, and everybody gets to that point, and it's different for everybody. So it's really no judgment, but it's just the knowing that it's inevitable. But that's just some stuff that you really shouldn't, you know what I mean? You really shouldn't do, especially if you're coming from like you said, like a fully intentional, pure purpose, open heart, whatever perspective of like, I'm ready to release. Because that, like you said earlier, that's really what you're doing. I'm releasing this connection. I'm letting it go. I no longer want this in my life. I no longer want this in my reality. I'm closing out the book, right? That this person was involved in, that this energy was involved in, that this cord held, right? Like the place, the purpose, like all of those things, like you said.
1000%. Because that's why I said these practices are about releasing what you feel is no longer in your greatest, highest good, focusing what is on what in your circle of control. These aren't malicious, negative, practices. These are supposed to empower you and to help you gain that awareness, reground, refocus, and make room for the things that you want in your life, not the things that you're holding on to, whether it be out of fear, reactive abuse, or not reactive abuse, trauma bond, things like that. So again, you really got to check yourself when you're dealing with energy cords and how things tether and link to others.
And that's 100% it. And I think that's how we'll wrap it up, is that energy cords just simply are. You determine based on how you deal with them, whether they are healthy, reciprocal, or they aren't. And then you move accordingly based on what you can live with, what you need, and what healthy balance looks like for you. Because at the end of the day, regardless of what anybody tells you, you are the creator, the driver, the whatever of your own life. You are the energy in the vessel. So it is up to you to determine what the vessel can and cannot handle, what it can and cannot live with.
Alrighty. Thank you guys so much for listening in, tuning in. Thank you for joining us on the Spiritual Roundtable, where we just really get right down in it, no BS, and we just give you exactly what you need to hear. Not always what you want to hear, but definitely what you need to hear. Thank you for joining myself and Miss Keys of Wisdoms 369 for our talk today. And we hope that you join us next week when we play a little devil's advocate. No holds barred, just getting it from all angles. If you're into open perspectives and new ways of thinking, come join us next week, because we're not holding back. And if you are not a member of the website, but you enjoy conversation like this and free knowledge and learning, we have a free tree of knowledge and you should check it out. Become a member. It's 100% free, and you'll find it on www.childofbalance.com. Remember, as you go through this journey, please remember you are to feel your way through everything. Do not stop, do not make yourself smaller, and always continue to be unapologetically and authentically you, because the world needs more of that.